So what is going on, guys? Prince93 here with another video, and today I was actually scrolling through my Amazon previous orders and I found out that 10 months ago tomorrow, I know it's a little confusing, but 10 months ago tomorrow, I would have had this iPad for 10 months. And ever since I received this iPad, I have let go of any and all other computers, right? So I've been iPad Pro only for now 10 months. And at first I was a little bit skeptical. I mean, I was skeptical when the iPad came out originally, right? 10 years ago or whatever it is at this point now, because we didn't know that we needed this like middle ground between a phone and a computer. In steps Steve Jobs. He announces this big iPhone looking thing where it's just like, again, it was just a bigger version of an iPod Touch or an iPhone at the time, especially if you didn't get it with LTE or 4G or whatever they had back then. I think it was 3G at that point. But they came out with this new category that Apple has since dominated. They have over 400 million iPads sold at this point, and compare that to the next most successful, I guess, two-in-one or tablet-style computer, that's the Microsoft Surface. They're at like 40 million, so that's like 10% of what Apple has done pretty much over the same time span. And then you've seen other players come and go. Samsung releases a bunch of tablets all the time, but you see them nowhere. I've never seen anybody have a Samsung tablet like out in the wild. You know, Google had a couple attempts at it with their Slate. You know, that crashed and burned immediately. So Apple has essentially created their own product, their own market. They've created their own kind of category of technology, of computer, and they've ran with it, and it's been super successful ever since they did that. People questioned in the beginning, and in typical Apple fashion, everybody adopts it at the end of it all, right? That was the same case for when AirPods came out, you know, when the iPads came out, and even the iPhones. People just didn't know that they needed it. And then, lo and behold, 10, 15 years later, somebody somewhere has some sort of Apple product just sitting around the house. And this is a testament to Apple and kind of showing, like, looking forward and telling the people what they need rather than what they think they need or what they have. So that's what this video is going to be about, guys. It's going to be about how I use my iPad over the last 10 months. I'm going to break it down into 3 different categories. We're going to have the work category, obviously, the leisure category, and then I'm putting YouTube in its own category because I don't really consider it work. It is more leisure, but a lot of people wouldn't consider it leisure because there is some effort that has to go into it. But those are the three categories that we're going to touch on, and how I use just my iPad Pro and other Apple accessories around me to make my experience as close to, if not better than, a computer, guys. So let's hop right into it. Thanks for coming to watch. Let's do it. So the situation is that it's been 10 months. I've had this iPad Pro. I'm rocking a 2018 version, 256 gigabyte, 12.9 inch model without LTE connectivity, right? That is my one regret. I do wish that I got LTE connectivity. Right now, it's not that big of a deal because we're at home. I'm always on Wi-Fi. I'm always plugged in. But there was an instance a couple months ago where I was somewhere for about a week and I really wanted to, and I knew my LTE would have been faster than the Wi-Fi that I was using. So I ended up having to play with hotspots and things like that. But that's my one regret when it comes to the iPad Pro that I wish I got. So whenever I upgrade to the 2020 or whatever the next case or whatever the next iteration of the iPad Pro is gonna be, LTE is what I'm gonna be getting. And then the reason I haven't gotten the 2020 iPad Pro is because I don't really see the need to. This iPad Pro has done wonders in terms of actual performance. I'm not gonna see any difference. Or I had the iPad Pro 2020 for a while, but then I ended up getting rid of it. So that's the situation that we're in right now, guys. But let's start to break this down on how I use the actual iPad itself, right, on a day-to-day basis. So the first category that I mentioned, we're using it for work, right? So what does that mean exactly? One thing that I do want to tell you guys, because this is directly correlated with the work portion of the iPad Pro, Microsoft Office 365 has fully updated all of their Microsoft Suite apps, or at least the main ones like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, OneDrive, Outlook. Those are the main ones that I would say 90% of Microsoft users use. And now it's been updated to fully utilize iPadOS, and that's with the addition of the multitasking. Before, you weren't able to pull up 2 Excel files and use them simultaneously and kind of use data from one to input it to the other, but now you can. So that's really, really awesome, and that's really, really increased my productivity with the iPad Pro itself, because for work, we use a lot of Microsoft products. We use Outlook, we use OneDrive, we use those main Microsoft Suite applications that I spoke about. So being able to finally use those Microsoft Suite apps with that multitasking has worked wonders, guys. So that's mainly what I use it for. I use it for email, I use it for writing up documents, for editing documents, using Excel a lot, creating PowerPoint presentations for meetings that I have to go to. So Microsoft Suite is now fully embedded, in my opinion, within iPadOS, and in some cases, it works better on the iPad itself than it does on a Windows machine or even a Mac machine, or a Mac OS machine for that matter. Another big thing that I use iPad Pro for is PDF documents, and then being able to annotate them with the pencil itself, right? So that's something that has been lacking in the 2-in-1 space. Yes, there are a lot of Windows computers that flip into a tablet mode that have a touchscreen, but that interface isn't meant to be a touch-first interface. So the beauty of the iPad is that it was created to be a touch-first interface. So when you pop off the iPad and then start signing documents with it, it's natural and it works how it's supposed to work, versus on a Windows machine, there's a bunch of different things that you have to jump through to be able to get that done. And usually it's a little bit slower. It's not optimized to be a touch-first machine. So that's why I love the iPad. Being able to just pull off the iPad off the actual keyboard case and just turn it into portrait mode and start jotting down notes or start editing contracts and things like that. That's a really powerful tool. And it's also just overall a lot more fun to be using this guy for work as opposed to a regular standard laptop Windows computer. And then another thing that's actually helped me a lot from this work from home situation is an app called Shift Screen. So I'll link Shift Screen below if you guys want to try it out, but it's a wonderful app. In a normal situation, when you plug in a secondary monitor to an iPad, right now the only capability it has is to mirror the current display and stick to the same aspect ratio. So usually when you do that, you'll see 2 black bars on the right and the left of the actual monitor itself when the iPad Pro is plugged into a secondary display. And then again, you're only gonna see what's on the iPad Pro. So with Shift Screen, what it allows me to do is use a secondary display more like a traditional secondary display, so it doesn't mirror anymore. And then I'm able to open full websites and also full files, PDFs, and things of that nature onto the full screen, with getting rid of the black bars and just adding more screen real estate to what I'm doing. As you guys can see, I have my Notes app open on the right-hand side of the iPad itself, and then on the monitor, I have YouTube open through the Shift Screen app on the iPad itself. So definitely try out Shift Screen. It's not a perfect solution. It's not probably what most people expect a secondary display to do with an iPad or what they want it to do, but it's a great step forward in my opinion. It allows you to use a secondary monitor as more than just mirroring a display with black bars that makes it look ugly and things like that. So big fan of Shift Screen. Highly recommend trying it out if you guys are browsing a lot with a secondary monitor. So that pretty much sums up the category of work when it comes to the iPad. So I use it mainly for emailing. I use it for presentations, for mirroring displays, things like that. And then also the addition of the Magic Keyboard has really increased the productivity when it comes to typing. The typing experience is just so much better than what the Slim Folio was. With this one, it's a whole different ballgame. The typing experience is amazing. You got backlit keys. You have the dedicated trackpad, which works amazingly. Even though it is small, you get used to it very quickly. So overall productivity has just increased with the Magic Keyboard. I used to think that the fact that I needed to touch the screen to get stuff done was better, but something about the trackpad being, I guess, physically closer to you and being able to just move it around to click on certain things has really helped out. And then also the new text editing where the actual mouse pointer turns into the classic text editor cursor. I love that little aspect because it makes it easy to highlight, move, edit, copy, paste text very easily, guys. So that's what encompasses the work category. So now we're going to shift over to what I use the iPad for when it comes to YouTube. So the normal workflow when it comes to making a YouTube video, right? So for this one, the first thing that I do is just do a little research on Safari, right? Find out what's changed with the iPad, what things have gotten better, what things have gotten worse, what can improve. Then I start to look at what other creators have done, if this has been spoken about, how much it's been spoken about, what they've said, what I can do to maybe twist it a little bit, to put my own spin on it. So then that's basically what I do when it comes to a video. I have an idea, start doing a little research, and then I start typing out a script. Before I used to handwrite my scripts, but now that I have the Magic Keyboard, I'm finding it a lot more productive, a little more fun, a little faster to actually type with this keyboard versus the Slim Folio. When I use a Slim Folio keyboard, I would always default to the pencil to get a lot of my notes done. But now I'm defaulting to the keyboard because it's just faster, in my opinion, and it's a better experience. So after I do my research, I start editing, I go into the Notes app, and then I start creating a script, which is what you guys are seeing right here. It's just a script that pretty much talking points. I don't write down word for word what I'm gonna say. I just have different talking points that I know that I need to touch on, and then whatever comes to mind as the video goes on, I start to talk about those different aspects. The next thing I usually do is actually create the thumbnail. So I start mapping up the thumbnail. The thumbnail for this video was actually shot on the iPhone SE, which is pretty absurd, guys. So what I do is I take the thumbnail picture, usually on my iPhone 11 Pro Max, but I wanted to use the SE to see if I could get away with it. So let me know what you guys thought about the thumbnail. But I take the picture on there, use the native Photos app to edit that actual thumbnail, and then use this app called Pixlr to finish the edit, to add a couple more things that the native Photos app just isn't capable of doing. Pixlr is a great application. It was definitely an iPhone first application. They did end up making an iPad one, so there is an iPad dedicated Pixlr application, but you can only use it in portrait mode, you can't turn it to landscape. So that's a little bit annoying, but it's just the app that I know that I've been using for years, so I stick to it and I really, really like it. And then what I do is I do this. I start to film the video. I have the iPhone camera on a tripod, kind of. I use my lav mic here to make sure I reduce the echo as much as possible because my walls are pretty empty and this room is pretty echoey. And then once the video is done recording, I'll then just airdrop all of that stuff onto the iPad. That's the beauty of having an iPhone and an iPad, the ecosystem of what Apple has created. Being able to just airdrop and not have to grab a dongle, pull out an SD card, put the SD card into that dongle, then plug the dongle into the iPad, then go into the Files application, move the files into the Photos app. So think about how many steps I'm cutting out just by recording on the iPhone and then airdropping them to my iPad. And that's the only data transfer that I have from phone to iPad. And that includes a thumbnail. I'll just airdrop the thumbnail over to the iPad as well. Once those files are moved over, move them into LumaFusion, get my editing process going, finish the edit, and then when I'm done, then I'll upload the file on YouTube straight through Safari, and then it's done. Then I do all my different edits, like add tags, add a description, make sure the thumbnail looks good, do my final checks, and I'll just upload it live. I usually don't plan my videos or time them out or record a bunch to have like a stockpile of videos ready to go. It's kind of, I just record the video, finish it, upload it, and see the feedback from you guys. So that is my YouTube process when it comes to the iPad Pro. And then the last category is just leisure. In my opinion, the iPad Pro has the potential to be the best gaming platform on the planet, right? I'm still a huge Xbox One fan, big Xbox One fan, but the main reason I say it has the potential is because I've seen it with Call of Duty, with Fortnite, with a lot of racing games, and even some of the sports games that are really watered down, the mechanics of using an Xbox controller is identical. So like I've been playing NBA 2K, and even though the game itself, like the features of the game are watered down, the actual gameplay is not that different. I could say the same exact thing about Call of Duty, so that's what I'm missing. I'm just missing full-fledged sports games on the iPad, and then it'll be game over. Because it's very portable, the charge lasts a good amount of time, you can bring whatever controller you have, from an Xbox, from a PlayStation 4, or an MFI controller that you've had laying around for a while, so it's easy to start up and use, easy to download off the App Store. It's the best of both worlds. It'll help not only the creator of the game, but also the consumer, because it's just right in front of your face and you can move it anywhere. Versus an Xbox, to move an Xbox, yeah, it's not super hard from a physical standpoint, but you have to remember the power cord, you gotta remember the HDMI cord, you gotta make sure where you're going, the TV has an HDMI plug. So there's a bunch of things that just kind of get in the way when you're trying to move portably and game at the same time. So that's why the iPad itself has the potential to be the best gaming platform on planet Earth. And they should follow what Stadia did. Even though Stadia, I haven't heard anything about it since they released, because they don't have the user base. Imagine if every single iPad user and iOS user just had the ability to jump on Apple's new gaming platform. I'm gonna look up how many iOS users are on the planet, I'm gonna put it down here, but that's instantly that many users that Apple has that they don't have to fight for, which is unbelievable. And I think that's the way that they're going eventually. So from a leisure perspective, from a gaming perspective, I love it. We just need the games to get a little bit better. And then obviously the last thing that I do use it for is just media consumption. A lot of Netflix, tons of YouTube. And one thing that I have been doing is actually gravitating to watch YouTube through Safari. The Safari desktop class browsing experience is actually really nice, and I'd rather use the YouTube website on Safari than the YouTube dedicated app on the iPad itself. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I don't know what your guys' preferences. Comment below what you would rather do, but I'd rather go on Safari and watch a video on Safari on the YouTube website versus go to the YouTube application. But that's pretty much what I use the iPad for from beginning to end, right? And that's what I've been using it for the last 10 months. And over those 10 months, it's gotten better and better and better. And the reason I took the dive is because when iPadOS beta released, I think it was in late April of last year, so it's been over a year now at this point, that's what made me go and buy the iPad Pro 2018 from Amazon. And from then on, it's just been an upward trend of not only productivity, things are just getting better and better, all the leisure activities are getting better and better, and work applications are finally beginning to adopt this iPadOS ecosystem because they're realizing how many users are going to be on this iPad and how many people are going to prefer this form factor versus the classic Windows laptop or even the classic MacBook Pro. Like, I don't know where this MacBook Pro 13-inch, where it fits in Apple's lineup, because I think the iPad Pro is what fits in between the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro 16-inch, guys. So the last thing that I want to leave you guys with as to why I prefer an iPad versus a classic laptop is that all those three categories that I mentioned are just more fun to do on the iPad itself. Even tedious work, tasks that I have to get through, it's more fun to do it on the iPad because, yeah, I'm typing away, but then at any point I can just pop it off, lay on a couch or lay on the bed and just start scripting whatever I need to do. So it just makes it more fun and more engaging of an experience when it comes to the iPad. And also when you're doing work stuff, the fact that you can only have 3 different applications kind of running simultaneously in front of your face on the iPad means you're not going to go somewhere else to get distracted. So your productivity goes up, because with a classic laptop, you can have 18 million tabs open in different windows and you can box them in different areas, right? Especially if you have 2-3 monitors, you can have 100 different boxes and windows all over the place, and that gets distracting. Versus the iPad, you're stuck to 3 things. You have the 2 multitasking windows and then the slide over window, and that's all you can do. So it increases your productivity, in my opinion, because it allows you to just use what you need to at that time, and then when you're done, then you go and do whatever you would have been distracted with. So that's the last thing I'm gonna leave you guys with. The iPad is just more fun to use in every single aspect that I mentioned, and highly recommend you guys pick one up. I do recommend going with a refurbished 2018 model because they are cheaper on the Apple website, on Best Buy, and on Amazon. I don't see the value in going to a 2020 iPad Pro, especially if there's more than 150 price difference between the 2018 and the 2020. So that's my 2 cents, guys. I know this was a longer video, but I really wanted to make this one for you guys. But that's gonna do it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Comment below what you guys use your iPads for, whether it is one from 10 years ago or the newest one that Apple just released. I'm curious to know what you guys are doing with it. If you guys use it for leisure, if you guys use it for work, and anything in between. So again, that's gonna do it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.